I better keep my phone from out just in case that broker calls. Alan, what did you do? All I hear is Now they'll know what we use. Thank you.
Sign in.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
I thought it was turned out when it wasn't so literally, but it just didn't turn out. We were first really bad at this. It just didn't turn out. So, we'll see that. We look good on battery, right? That's what that guy is. Yeah.
We might have to look at this again. We're having trouble with the sound.
I don't know. Oh, yeah, what happened last week? Because that's pretty.
I don't know.
We're wondering if you changed the settings.
I don't have any clue what it could do.
Okay. We don't have enough time to really look into much.
Yeah. Don't rush it right now.
Yeah.
But it's not it's picking up all the audio.
Oh, that's
so
bad.
like it's hearing you talk right now.
Oh, hi live stream. Sorry about it. I'll go back and I'll shorten it so that it's shorter. Let's see. So this is on mic. Audio input capture.
They're gonna know what we use now.
Why does that keep popping up?
What is it doing?
It pops up Pro Presenter.
But I was actually Pro Presenter, but I don't sign in. I thought we were signed in.
Yeah, why are we not signed? That is super weird.
Email.
Oh, because Mona
What's our email?
changed the... Did she ever give us the information on it?
Isn't it in her binder?
No, because that's the old one. I think it says... That one says them Petties, pretty sure.
Them Petties?
I don't think it shouldn't be, because I think she transferred it over.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's not even on there.
Yeah. And then... We'll worry about it. So we might see Pro Presenter up there a few times. Yeah, we're actually sponsored this week. Sorry, that's a bummer.
Oh my goodness, all the things on it. Look at
We're sponsored.
What's that? Conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so what it is we needed to recognize that it's through this that our audio is coming in.
We're going to get started with a little bit of worship. If you guys
Yeah, we'll have to look at it later.
as we sing.
No.
Yeah, but I didn't set the TV up.
Yeah, I gotta wait. Sorry, guys. Thanks for standing. Okay, here we go. Oh. Pastor. That's fantastic. Let's continue on singing King of My Heart. You guys can take a seat. Hey, so I know I've said it before, but good morning, good morning. If you don't, oh, thank you, Gary, I appreciate that. If you guys don't know who I am, or if you do, I'm still the same person. But my name is Zach Gordy. I'm the associate pastor on staff here. And I just have the joy of working mostly with the youth, which is an absolute blast. And in fact, actually, Chloe, one of our youth, is also going to Life, and we're leaving on Friday. So myself, a couple other leaders, and we've got 17 students going to Indianapolis. Yeah. Guys, going to do some awesome things, absolutely awesome things. That's perfect. We're a team here. That's great. So we're leaving on Friday for a week of service projects and worship and fellowship, and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So we just want to invite you guys to join us in praying over the youth over that trip. For safety, for enjoyment, and for God to just meet us where we are. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Second thing, sorry, I get nervous in front of you guys. We've got a couple of different awesome things going on. Biggest one is VBS is coming up later in July, and so if you haven't had the opportunity to sign up to help, but you're like, Dan, I really want to help for VBS. That sounds like something that I want to do. Well, luck is in your favor because over in the gym, underneath the Awana Club sign, we've got a sign-up sheet so you can sign up to help. It's going to be a blast. We hope to see you guys there. And then online, if you've got kiddos that want to be a part of that or that you want your kiddos to be a part of that, we've got a sign-up online for that too. As always, you guys can check the website for announcements, sign-ups, daily, what's happening with the church. It's a great way to keep up. But I'm going to invite the ushers to come forward as we move into a time of prayer. And as they're making their way up, I just want to let you guys know we're going to do something fun today. When we are doing offering here, we're going to start our next song. And if you've already had your usher go past you with the plate, feel free to just stay seated for a little bit and just take it in. You can worship from your seat. And then as we move forward in the song, I'm going to invite you guys to stand. So, would you guys pray with me? Lord Jesus, we are just so thankful for who you are, God. Lord, we thank you for today and for the sun to be shining, for it to be a little bit cooler in here than it was last week, Lord. We just thank you so much, Lord. You are so good. God, we've got so many fun things happening at the church with VBS and with youth stuff and everything in between, Lord. We just thank you so much for being in all of those, Lord. We ask that you'd be watching over us with protection and, Lord, with feeling your presence, Lord. We know that you are around us, Lord, and we just ask that we would feel that we would know that and feel it and acknowledge it, God. So I just pray that over this offering too, Lord, everything that we receive would just be given back to you to grow your kingdom and just love on others well. Good in your name. Amen.
Did you fix it? Did you fix it? There it is.
I
Jesus, be in this place, Lord. In your holy name. Amen. You guys can take a seat.
Hey, I remember to turn this on this week. That's fun. So to start, one thing you'll notice up here on our screens is randomly we'll decide to broadcast something called Review Vision. We're not sponsored or anything like that. It's just we have to update it. I forgot to do that. So I'm sorry for the fun little thing. It'll be fine though. We're all good. I got a game for us to play to start. I'm going to kind of flow into the message a little bit. It's just simply going to be a blurry image, and you guys have to guess what the blurry thing is, and then we'll see if you're correct. So whisper to the person next to you when you have an answer. Don't yell it, because then if you're wrong, it's a little awkward. So let's see what our first one is. This one should be easier. You kind of whisper to someone. Who do you think that is? All right, let's see what it is. Right. That's a line. Was it harder for me? I also put it together. So. Let's see what the next one is. We got a couple. All right, this is kind of cool. Got a couple seconds. All right, let's see what it is. Whoa. How many of you are 2 for 2 so far? Oh, this is harder than I thought. Okay, that's good. All right, let's see what the next one is. That's pretty common. All right, that one's easy. Let's see what it is. Well, all right, see what the next one is. Oh, it appears to be an email from someone named Pastor Clarati. I don't know who that is. Yeah, so this happens every church at some point. Gets someone pretending to be a pastor and then emails everyone and everything and tries to get gift cards. Just be very clear. I will never ask you to do a discrete task like this is asking you. You should alert somebody if someone asks you to do that. And 2, I don't need your gift cards, so don't send it to me. That's not what it is. Sorry, people do this stuff. So just in case you do that again, I would never ask this. This was not me. This was funny. All right. Next thing. Ooh, that one's kind of creepy. Is it a snake? That could be. Let's see what it is. An owl. Yeah. Those things look so judgmental all the time. They're so cool. You can get that off. We are walking through the Gospel of Mark this summer, and currently we're in this really interesting time throughout the Gospel of Mark. We have to remember when we're reading these Gospels, when we're reading the Bible, the author has intentions throughout it. And one of the things with the Gospel of Mark is he has different phases throughout his book. And we're in the phase right now where he's depicting Jesus doing something really specific. He's doing a lot of things, but it's all for one big purpose. And that is that Jesus, in the Gospel right now that we're in, is trying to train his disciples. So everything that he's doing it because he's Jesus and he's blessing people and making a bunch of food out of nowhere and all this kind of stuff. He's doing this stuff, but he's doing it in Mark's view primarily to train his followers, to train those 12 that are with him right now. So he's doing this to train them, and that makes sense because after Jesus dies and then resurrects and then ascends into heaven, the disciples are the ones that God is calling to then start to spread this good news of Jesus all around. So Jesus, he sees that, and he wants to make sure that they're trained well enough that they can go out into the world and to preach the message that Jesus proclaimed, to talk about what Jesus did, and to not have anything blurry. Because you can see there's a big difference. When something is blurry, you're kind of guessing at what it is. You have an idea of what's going on there, you see shapes, you see things, but Jesus wants to bring clarity to everything. He wants to make really, really clear to them without any excuses who Jesus is, his message that he proclaimed, and then what does that mean for us? He wants to be super, super clear about that. Jesus is teaching them, trying to make clear things that at first seem blurry. And if you're a teacher, you know that sometimes teaching involves breaking down wrong ideas. There's always wrong ideas that we bring to the table, and a good teacher says, hey, we have to maybe unlearn some things to then build upon something else. one of those things that Jesus really wants to make these disciples clear about is that Jesus is good news for all people. Jesus is good news for all people. So to Jesus, this is a non-negotiable thing. He's talking about this all the time throughout the Gospels, but he wants to be incredibly clear about this. And if you were here last week for our text, you saw some of this. But let's look at a map to see where Jesus currently is as we look a little bit behind us, but then look at our text today. So Jesus has been doing this big circuit kind of around the area. He goes way north of there, and then he kind of goes east and south. And he goes to that yellow spot there. He kind of does this random trip where he decides, when he feeds 4,000 people, and then he jumps on a boat, and he zip on over to the west side of the Sea of Galilee, meets some Pharisees, some like professional religious Jewish people, has an argument with them, and then he gets on a boat, and that's that red line there, going out to Bethsaida. So here's kind of where we're at right now. We're kind of guessing where this area is. We don't know exactly where he's landing today. But on this boat ride, last week we saw that Jesus got in a little bit of like an argument, a little bit heated with his disciples, where he says some things, and on this boat ride, they're panicking because they're like, we forgot to bring food. We don't have any bread. We only have like one little like roll for us for the whole crew of 13 people. And they're panicking, and Jesus says, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod. Now, there's a lot behind that phrase that Jesus says. They weren't understanding it, and Jesus is kind of unpacking some of the seriousness of this. But one of the things that he said about this, one of the big points about this yeast of the Pharisees and that of Herod, is this idea that the Pharisees would teach that Jesus was only for the Jewish people. This is a very common belief, like the Messiah that we've been promised and we're hoping for, that he's going to be good for everybody, but especially for us. They said, we as the ethnically Jewish people, we're here, everyone else is down here. Okay, so like, yeah, it's good for you, but like, it's all about us. That was a common, prevalent belief that we know the Pharisees were teaching at this time. And we know that the disciples, which were Jewish, and they were being raised in that Galilee area for the most part, where these Pharisees had a lot of say, where they taught a ton. So, of course, their belief about this was going to rub off on these disciples. So Jesus is trying to correct. He doesn't want that blurry line of things. He wants to be super clear that he is for all people. He says, beware of the use of the Pharisees and that of Herod. That's a big statement. And then a little bit into it, we didn't spend much time on this last week because I was boiling up here because it was a little warm. But there's this verse here where Jesus refers to something from before that I want us to look at because it's so important. So Mark chapter 8, verse 19 to 20 says this. It says, Jesus is speaking, he says, when I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? And the disciples replied, 12. And when I broke the 7 loaves for the 4,000, how many basketfuls of pieces did you pick up? And they answered, 7. So this is a really simple verse, and if you read in context of what's going on last week, it looks super random. Like, why is Jesus talking about all this food? Is he just trying to tell them don't worry about food because I can multiply a whole bunch to the 5,000 people, which really would have ended up being like 15,000 potentially, and the 4,000 people, which could have been maybe 10,000 people? Jesus brings this up for a super big reason, because he's actually addressing that really, really strong, prevailing belief that the Pharisees taught, which was that the Messiah would come and he would instill the Jewish people as like the best, biggest political force in the world. Militantly, politically, socioeconomically, and then he was going to kick out all the Gentiles, all the non-Jewish people. Okay, this was something that the Pharisees believed the Messiah would do, and Jesus was pointing this out to show, no. Jesus is good for everybody. Jesus is good news for all people. He refers to this feeding of the 5,000, and he did this on, my north and west are always confused, so I always go never eat soggy waffles, and I'll never forget. But on the west side, the Sea of Galilee is a very Jewish area, so very Jewish. And there's 5,000 people, so that's an event that took place. Jesus multiplied a little bit of fish and a little bit of loaves of bread to feed 5,000 people, minimum. And that's a big deal. And how many basketfuls? That's 12. So in the Jewish territory, everyone would have pretty much been Jewish with this crowd that was following Jesus. Fed 5,000 Jewish people. And then later he goes north and then east and southeast. And here is where he is in the Decapolis, which is a heavily Gentile area. So not Jewish. He says, oh, you got the 4,000 there. So Jesus feeds the 5,000, which is a crowd of Jewish people, and then he feeds the 4,000 in a heavily, heavily Gentile area. Why does Jesus say this? Because of that common belief that the Messiah would treat the Gentiles as worthless and as enemies. That was tons of people believed this at the time. And Jesus is training his disciples, and he wants to squash that terrible idea. Jesus fed the 5,000 Jewish people to the west. Remember, they're on that lake. And then Jesus fed the 4,000 Gentiles to the east. He has come as a blessing for all people. And he mentions the baskets. And this is where it gets really, really interesting here. So, 12 baskets are left over after feeding the 5,000, which was the Jewish group. And those of you who know much Israel history will know that 12 is an interesting number because that represents the amount of tribes of Israel. Oh, interesting. So what is that showing then is that Jesus is sufficient for all Jewish people. Every single group within this, Jesus is sufficient for them. But then you have the 4,000 that goes later on in the story. 4,000 people, and how many baskets are left over after that? 7. 7 is a really important number in the Bible. Explicitly all throughout it, it means completeness. It means completeness. So this shows, intentionally by Jesus, that he is sufficient for all of those beyond the Jewish people as well. There's no second place. Jesus is so intentional with everything there, even the basketfuls left over. He made just enough that they would pick up enough to have it so that it could represent everybody. So Jesus is mentioning all of this to show we don't want the blurriness about who is the Messiah really for, who is Jesus really here to bless. He is for all people. Without any mistake, he's making this huge claim. He doesn't want them to confuse this. Jesus is capable and he fully offers himself as a sufficient measure of grace to all people. Do you see how intentional Jesus is throughout all of this? He's so intentional. Yes, he is teaching and healing people, but he's also training his disciples. That's kind of the focus of this part of the Gospel of Mark. And that leads us to today's message, to today's text, where they land from that boat ride in this area of Bethsaida. And we're going to see a pretty cool miracle where Jesus is making some pretty big points for them. So, what we're going to do when we're reading our text is we're going to stand up to just recognize that this word is holy word. This isn't just anyone's opinion. This is God's word. This is his gospel. This is the good news that we're reading from here. So Mark chapter 8, verses 22 to 26. Go to the next one. It says this. It says, they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked him, "You see anything?" The man looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home, saying, "Don't even go to the village." Let's pray. God, thank you for your word. Thank you for showing us so much about yourself. You didn't have to. You were not obligated to. You chose to give us this incredible word that we might be able to see of your beauty, see who you are, see who we are, see what you've done about it. God, you are good news for all of us. And for God, we recognize that good news. And we can see that even in this text, which at first looks pretty wild. God, this is all good news. Thank you for who you are. Be with us in this text today as we uncover and see good news here. We love you, Lord. You guys have a seat. So that's our text. It starts by saying that they came to Bethsaida, this city that we kind of know where the area is, kind of northeast-ish of the Sea of Galilee. And it says that some people brought a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. So Jesus goes to this place, Bethsaida, we know is largely a Jewish area, but it was super influenced by the Greco-Roman world. Okay, so Greco-Romans would be like the Greeks or the Romans, that's why you name it that. They had a lot of influence in this region. There was a lot of trade around here, and on this side was a whole bunch of Gentiles. So they were ethnically a lot of Jewish people, but they also believed a lot of the random things that the Greco-Romans taught, and we'll talk about that in a moment here. We see Jesus and his 12 students arrive in the city, and as soon as they arrive, it says that some people brought over a blind man and begged Jesus to lay hands on him. So this unnamed blind man, which this wouldn't have been a surprise if we were to bring him to Jesus, because Jesus, he is kind of known at this point. Everywhere he goes, people know this is at least a miracle worker. You hear about some guy that is doing incredible miracles, and you're thinking, oh, this is interesting. We have someone, one of our friends has an ailment. We want this miracle man to do this. Jesus is clearly more than just a man. We see that. But he's in this area, and you hear this, so people are desperate, and they're bringing Jesus tons of people. It says that he was blind. Because in this day, they didn't have like soap like we have today. Hygiene in the ancient world was not very good. And this area, as you can imagine, in the Middle East was super, super dusty. So it's dry, it's dusty, not good hygiene. But also the sun is super bright, and you didn't have cool sunglasses to put on. So because of that, eye diseases were super common in this area. Especially the older you got, it was very common. So this is not much of a, this is a very common story that probably happened. Someone is blind because of the situation, and you bring them to Jesus. So his friends bring him to Jesus. They're clearly, that's a common thing that happened for Jesus. And they ask Jesus to do something. They ask him to lay his hands on this person. Okay, that is for two reasons. One, because healing was a hands-on activity, always. In the ancient world, if you were going to heal somebody, it was hands-on. When they say lay hands on somebody, it's not like a threat or anything. This is just how you heal in this idea. This is just what it looked like. And of course, Jesus could have healed this man any way that he wanted to, but Jesus tends to meet each person with compassion. And in the ancient world, in this context here, laying on hands would show that you're not some undesirable, that you're someone to embrace. And you're someone that I'm going to try to heal. He was actually showing compassion on this man by this. Last chapter in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus meets a deaf man and puts his fingers in the man's ears. Which again to us sounds insane and crazy. But the fact is, in this context, it would have communicated to this deaf man what Jesus was about to do. It would have been seen in the context as being the most nurturing and caring thing that Jesus could have done. Of course, he heals him, but he also is pressing on the exact place that has caused this man probably so much pain, so much relational frustration, all these different things. And of course, just how everyone would view you in the ancient world is being cursed in some way. Jesus meets him there. This act of touching like Jesus is doing is meeting him in this context. Healing is a compassionate thing, but Jesus tends to go further and care for the person as well. Even those seen as untouchable, the rejects, the outcasts, the afflicted. Regardless of your story, Jesus doesn't run from you, he runs to you. No matter how unlovable or untouchable you might think that you are. When we read these stories, we cannot underestimate the shame that these people would have done. If you were any kind of like ritually pure person, you would avoid these people at all costs. But Jesus doesn't run from him, he runs to you. So the blind man is brought to Jesus, and while he helps Jesus, takes the man aside. It's just a Jesus thing to do, but in the ancient world, again, Jesus is doing something crazy. In this day, the sick, the diseased, the blind, the paralyzed were seen as sinful and impure in some capacity. So we even have a lot of Jewish rabbis that their writings have lasted today. There's actually a really common quote they often would say, which was this. They would say, no suffering without sin. So they would say, no suffering without sin. And of course, we could say that from like a cosmic level, like, yeah, sin entered the world and it's caused chaos, so as a result we have tsunamis and we have diseases. Yes, that is true, but that's not how they meant it. When they said no suffering without sin, what they actually believed was that it was every single suffering was caused by God. So they saw, if you're blind, well, you must have done something really sinful. You did something really bad, maybe your parents did something really bad, so now God is like striking you because you're a sinner and you sinned, therefore you're going to suffer as a result of it. Or if you had some bad accident and you broke your legs or something, now you can't walk. In that day, these Pharisees would say, well, no suffering without sin. So they're saying this must be a God-caused thing, so now you are one of the untouchables. To the ancient world, if you're suffering, it's because you did something wrong, and now you're paying for it from a spiritual level. So many of the afflictions and diseases in this day would lead many respectable people to avoid you at all costs, because they actually believed that you could catch or pick up the punishment in some way. That you could pick up the defilement, so you could be dirty as a result of being close to one of these people that had an affliction that they saw because they were sinning. Of course, Jesus does not agree with any of that teaching. This goes directly against so much of what he talks about, but that's the day and age that we're in. So a holy man like Jesus, meeting this man, and not just saying, away from me, because I'm too pure for you, he says, no, we're going to go talk about this. I'm going to go see you. I'm going to lay my hands on you. This already is a radical thing. Jesus goes to the sick, to the meek, to the broken, because Jesus never runs from you, he always runs to you. He meets us where we are. The text goes on. That's not the craziest part of the story. Verses 23 to 26 says this, after our fun little ProPresenter slide that we're going to see once every minute. It says, he took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. When he had spit on the man's eyes and put his hands on him, Jesus asked, "Do you see anything?" He looked up and said, "I see people. They look like trees walking around." Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes, then his eyes were opened. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Now, this is the second time that you've been around for the Gospel of Mark that makes us go, yeah. This is gross. Like, why is there so much saliva in these two miracles of Jesus that we've seen kind of, not back to back, but similar together? And that's a good question, because this would probably put you in jail for at least a night if you did this to somebody. Jesus just walked up and spat in this guy's eyes. Like, what is going on right now? Shouldn't you be arrested? In 2025, this seems crazy, but again, in the ancient world, this was a little bit of a different story. One of the really strange things that people believed back then, especially the Greco-Roman area, or those that believed a lot of the Greco-Roman ideas, was that the saliva from a ritually pure person had strong healing properties. Really interesting. So if you were like a really spiritually pure person, you haven't offended the gods, or we're talking about a lot of Greco-Roman stuff here. You had the whole pantheon of gods, the multitude of gods that you would have worshipped in some way. If you were good in their eyes, then your saliva, they thought, especially in the morning, we're very specific about that, doesn't really matter. But they believed that your saliva actually could heal things, so there was a bunch of folk remedies that people would use for different ailments. But on top of that, if the person was seen as incredibly powerful, potentially even divine in some way, then their saliva wasn't just powerful in healing, but also in miraculous healing. Two different things. Their saliva was seen as extra special. Now, if you think how stupid they are, they're so dumb, why would you think that saliva would do this? It's really gross. Have you ever seen a dog get cut before? It has like a wound that's open. What do dogs do to try to deal with that? So you're in the ancient world, you don't have microscopes, you don't have these different things, and you see these dogs that have wounds, and then they're licking it, and then what happens to most of them? They get better. So it's easy to look back and say, look how stupid they are. But they weren't that dumb. They were looking around, they saw the dogs, and they thought, oh, that must be true about humans too, because dogs have spit, we have spit. They're not that dumb. So just to give a little bit of humility check for that. But they saw this kind of stuff, and it was a common belief. You had saliva, you were a spiritually pure person. There's actually a guy, this is extra information that I find cool, and I don't know if anyone else does. But there's this writer around this time named Lucian, and he wrote a bunch of different things. One of the things that he talked about was a man named Alexander the False Prophet. That was his name for him. But this guy would travel around, and he'd go city to city, and he would sell packets of his saliva and say that it could heal anything from a broken heartache to what did he say? Something like bowel issues to actually you broke your finger and needed to be fixed. So he was just walking around, he was a charlatan. He's selling this magical saliva, and people bought it all the time. So anyways, this was a common belief. People took advantage of it. They saw it in some capacity as having some spiritual or healing powers. So what Jesus is doing here is kind of odd, because he's kind of meeting this person where they are. Jesus is having compassion with them, and though he doesn't need to do this gross thing to this person, they would have seen this as oh yes, this is how you heal someone. Jesus interestingly steps into what this man thinks should happen, to have compassion with him and say, I'm going to meet you where you are, and I'm going to heal you. Very odd, very crazy, but that is also not the weirdest part of the story. It's actually the rest of the miracle. So Jesus touches the man's eyes with his saliva, again, not the weird part of the story, in context. And then Jesus asks him a question. He says, do you see anything? The man replies, yeah, I see people, but they look like trees walking around. This is super interesting, because every other time that Jesus heals someone, it is immediate. Jesus says the words, or Jesus touches in some way, and the person is immediately healed. Instant, right away, there's no delay that's there. But this time, Jesus touches the man and he's partially healed. That is very, very odd. So he asks him if he can describe what he sees, and the man says, yeah, they're like people But the trees, and that tells us two things. One, the man probably was not always blind, because how would you know what to reference people as or even trees, right? So he probably wasn't always blind, it probably was something that said it later. But then two, he's beginning to see, but everything is out of focus. It's just like that game we played at the beginning, the blurred pictures, like you kind of see shapes, you kind of see some colors, and you're kind of just taking wild guesses of what's happening. He's describing hazy shapes in front of him, not detailed images. His sight was only partially restored. He can make out parts of what he sees, but not with clarity. And now Jesus touches him again. And the second time, the man sees clearly. It says, then his eyes were opened, his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. He describes it in those three ways, and I won't get into the nerdy Greek stuff, but it makes so emphatically clear this is from front to end a complete restoration. He sees perfectly from this point on. There's no debate or anything. This man, after the second touch, is completely healed from this circumstance. At first it's partial, and then it's complete. Why does Jesus choose to do this? Was he just not strong? What's going on here? This is the only miracle that is progressive like this. All the other times, again, Jesus says it and it's done. But I believe Jesus does this intentionally. He intentionally heals the man in two phases for a reason. From what we learn about Jesus, he is too smart to do things on accident, and I think there's something really powerful about the story. So why would Jesus do this on purpose? Remember the area that we're in right now in the Gospel of Mark? What is Jesus' kind of main goal right now? It's teaching his disciples. He's teaching his disciples. So whenever it says that Jesus took the man aside, he's taking him away from the public. But his disciples would be with him all the time. That's how it worked to be a student of a master like this, to be a student of a rabbi in some sense. Like this is what is happening. So his disciples see all of this. There's two reasons. The first reason that Jesus does this progressive thing on purpose is to show that this blindness is stubborn and difficult to heal. He wants his disciples to see this. This is a really stubborn, difficult healing. If Jesus just fixes it right at first, it looks really easy for him, doesn't it? It looks like he just, without any trouble, just healed this man, but by progressively healing the man, he was showing that this blindness is a really tough case. And if this blindness is incredibly tough to heal, then you need an incredibly powerful healer. So you see how he's showing this off to show that only the strongest healer can actually accomplish this? By showing the difficulty of this healing, it shows the power of the healer. That Jesus can heal even the most difficult cases. But there's another reason, a bigger one, on why he does this progressive way. And I think that's the big point of the text. Why does Jesus take the boat over to Bethsaida? Why did Jesus have his disciples witness this miracle? Why did Jesus heal this man like this? Because Jesus was giving his disciples a picture of the spiritual process. That is the big, crazy point of this whole situation here. Jesus wanted to give them a picture of their spiritual process. The miracle is awesome, but it's even cooler when we notice that this miracle of the blind man also is an example of the disciples' faith up to this point, where they have been so far with Jesus. This man's progressive miracle describes the disciples' progressive faith. I mean, think about it. Jesus found the man completely blind. Jesus touches him, and now he sees, but it's out of focus. And then Jesus touches him a second time, and now he can see completely clearly. The disciples are found by Jesus, but Jesus calls them blind. After being with Jesus at first for a while, they started to see Jesus, but out of focus. They didn't fully get it. And then eventually, we're going to see, after spending more time with Jesus, they will see Jesus clearly. In a couple weeks, we're going to see the disciples, specifically Peter, call Jesus the Messiah. Notice exactly who Jesus claims to be, the importance of that, that he is the one that we have waited for so long. But it doesn't just happen like a snap, right? It's this progressive thing that happens. Right now in the Gospel of Mark, the disciples are seeing Jesus, but they see him out of focus. They see the works, they hear the teaching, they weren't even seeing Jesus, but they were seeing him only as a confusing miracle worker instead of the promised Messiah. They were seeing a blurred depiction of Jesus. So Jesus is showing the disciples with their eyes what is spiritually happening in their hearts. He's showing them with their eyes what is spiritually happening in their hearts. It's slow for sure, but Jesus is revealing himself to these disciples. They're seeing Jesus clearer and clearer until one moment they see him for who he truly is. Just a few verses ago on the boat ride, Jesus asked them, do you still not understand? Are you guys blind to the things that I have shown and taught you? And then immediately after, he shows them a physical healing of what's happening in their hearts, of the process that they've been in. At this point, the disciples see Jesus, but out of focus. But soon they will see him for who he truly is, the true Son of God, the promised Messiah they have all longed for. I just imagine as Jesus is healing this man, in the midst of it, he's going, okay, I'm going to spit in your eyes and do this, and I'm doing this, like, hey, can you see anything? And he's kind of looking over at his disciples like, you notice? Take note of this? Yeah? And then he does it again. He touches the second time, and he sees clearly, and then he just kind of gives him a look like, there you go, guys. Like, this is an image of what is happening. He is giving them a visual picture of what's spiritually happening in their hearts. And this is one of those things that it's hard sometimes because it's like, it's not, Mark doesn't tell us explicitly that that is what's happening. But this is what the earliest Christian thinkers, from as soon as we have all the way up till today, have consistently seen this as an actual image for the disciples that Jesus is training them. This is a way of trying to show the disciples, hey, you guys have seen me blurry up to this point, but I want you guys to get it. Because it is going to be up to you guys to be bringing this message that I have brought to you, that I've lived out in front of you, the gospel of Jesus, the good news of Jesus, and bringing that to the whole wide world. Jesus is so intentional as a teacher. But after all this, the verse ends with kind of an odd thing on that very last one, verse 26, where it says, after all this, Jesus sent the man home saying, don't even go to the village. Now again, if I was Jesus' PR guy, this is a mistake. And send him back to the city, like tell the whole world, put this on the newspapers. Let's get the world out. Jesus can even heal the blind. Jesus is the real deal. But instead, Jesus tells the man to not enter the village. Essentially, he's telling the man to keep the miracle private. Why does Jesus want to keep this miracle private? We see this quite a bit in this leg of the Gospel of Mark, and we've seen this a few times. And every time it catches me off guard. But it's important to understand that right now, Jesus is in his private phase of ministry. He's not trying to just get the word out to the whole wide world of like, hey, see what's happening here, because we already know that he is trying to train the disciples, and that takes time. But also we know that the Pharisees are trying to look for reasons to kill Jesus. So Jesus is not trying to like stir the pot more than he has to. Like, he wants to buy some time so he can be with his disciples and train them to where he feels is the right moment, and then he will hand himself over. So when Jesus is doing this, there's a few reasons why he's trying not to be like the most popular person in the world. He doesn't really care about that. He's come here with a great message. He doesn't care if you just think that he's cool, right? Like, he's trying to get the word out of the gospel, of the good news of Jesus and what he has come to do. And he's inviting us into a relationship like this. This is a big deal. So he's trying to buy time. He's trying to make sure his disciples get it. He wants this time to make it so that they can see clearly and not blurry like it might have been. But also, we know that lots of people, when they started to see Jesus do these miracles, they were trying to make him like the political guy of the day. Jesus does not have interest in that. So he's actually actively trying to show that he's not like the new political party that's going to like wage war and try to like destroy all of Rome right now. That's not what Jesus is doing right now. But people wanted to do that, so there's a few reasons why he's doing that, but primarily in this text, it's because he doesn't want less time to be able to teach his disciples. So that's our text. Pretty crazy, pretty anticlimactic way to end this text and this whole session. I know I say this a lot, but I'm blown away with Jesus and Jesus. Because the more that you get into the text, the more that you understand what he's doing and his purpose and what's going on here, the more you understand the ancient world, the more that you just realize that Jesus is such a genius. He is so incredibly intentional and wise that he actually provides the disciples with a physical picture of what's happening in our hearts. We all are on spiritual journey, different beginnings, different waves, different ebbs and flows throughout our life, but we all have the same love of Jesus reaching out to us. And as each of us experience Jesus, we might see parts of Jesus well, while other things are a little bit out of focus. Or maybe we see the morality of Jesus, and we think, hey, I see that really clearly. I like that one. But then the rest of him looks a little blurry. Like, he wants me to worship him now? Maybe we've seen enough about Jesus that we respect him. We think, Jesus is a sweet guy, he preaches good things, and that's pretty cool, so I respect Jesus, and I'll do things for Jesus because I respect him. But he doesn't want to be respected, he wants to be your Lord. He wants to be everything. And if we see just a little bit of clarity and a whole bunch of blur, we might miss the fact that Jesus is good news and that he wants us all to receive this good news and to be with him forever. Or maybe the love of Jesus seems really clear to you, but man, to want to live my life differently the way he calls me to, that's a little bit fuzzy. That's a little bit hazy. I don't know what exactly on your spiritual journey is in focus about Jesus and what is really blurry, but Jesus wants to clear it up. And I know that wherever we're at in our journey, if we've known Jesus for years, or if it's maybe the first time, there is a lot about Jesus that he's inviting us into to show how much better he is than we are. He wants this good news to be personal for us. He doesn't want us to just pick and choose different aspects of Jesus. That we would see and recognize who he claims to be, what he has done, and what he's inviting us into. I have good vision, so I don't want to sound like a hypocrite with this, but like I have gone to the eye doctors once just to make sure I have good vision. And that one time was enough to remind me like what this whole vision thing is like. So when you walk into an eye doctor's appointment, you walk in and they bring you into this weird room with like this giant thing filled with lenses. It looks like a depiction of an angel's face. Like all of these different things on this. They're sliding all these different lenses around, and they have you sit down, and they say, okay, I'm going to put this big machine over you, and at first it's all pitch black, and then they click, and then you've got some lenses in front of you, and they say, okay, what do you read, what do you see in front of you? And, they click it along, and it's like, oh, that's better, that's worse, this is clear, this is not as clear, all that kind of stuff. And slowly but surely what they're doing is they're learning. So, okay, 1 was better, but 2 was bad, we're going to try 4, we're going to try, I don't know the science, I'm not smart enough for that. But the people behind this, they know that what we're seeing, it's not all going to be clear right now. But it's this process to eventually get you to a place where now you can see clearly. You can see what's happening here. And for those of you who need lenses or need contacts and things, I can only imagine how beautiful that is to see blurry for so long and to have something funny where it's like, I can read all those numbers, read all these letters. And I know in our lives, in our spiritual lives as well, I don't know where we're at on that process, but I know that we have a Jesus who's intentionally clicking along and saying, trust me, sit down in the chair, don't get up and leave. I want to show you who I am, because it's going to change your life. And we have a Jesus who wants to clearly show us who he is, who we are, and what he's done about us. And he is very, very good at what he does. It might be a partial process. Again, we have these lifelong journeys. I know my story. It wasn't just suddenly like I woke up, suddenly I know Jesus. Hey, what a good day. It was a pretty ugly story for a large part of that until I see with clarity how good this Jesus really is. And my life has not been the same since that day. And I know Jesus wants that story for every single one of us, no matter where we're from or where we're going. He wants you to see him with clarity. Because I genuinely believe that if we see him for who he truly is, we cannot help but to say, Jesus, you are worthy. So, I don't know what that is for you application-wise. If that's like, hey, I've been following Jesus for a long time, but there's some areas here that I'm going to ask Jesus to show me where have I not taken this seriously, or where is it a little bit blurry for me? Because I'm following you, but I want to follow you even deeper. I've known that I've grown a lot in my faith, and every time I challenge Jesus with that, to say, Jesus, take me closer. Show me something else challenging, and I realize, oh, there's more life here than what I thought I had before. Or maybe you're not sure where to start with Jesus, and you're thinking, I don't know if I can do any of this stuff. I would just recommend the same thing. Sit down in the seat and let Jesus start to reveal himself to you. Just ask Jesus if you're there, would you show yourself to me if you are the real deal? Why do these people, these crazy people, worship you with everything they have? I believe that Jesus will walk you through this process to see just how good the news here really is. Jesus is really good. Let's pray together. God, thank you for your text. Thank you for the word. Thank you for this crazy story because it reveals something so cool about what you were doing with your disciples at this time. But God, also it's a story for us and how our spiritual lives work as well. Sometimes we're walking through the same thing. Sometimes we're around a lot of you, a lot of Jesus things. Maybe we're around a lot of your word. but we're not really seeing it with clarity. We're not seeing it with clarity of who it says that you are and what you come to do. That you are on this journey of restoring your whole creation, primarily with us. You're inviting us into this incredible news. God, maybe we know a lot of things about you, but maybe we don't know you as well as we think you. God, I pray you would just give us the boldness, if that's us in the room, to just ask you to take us whatever our next best step is that we need to go that direction. Because we see that just like the story that you walk with us hand in hand, and you progressively show us your goodness, show us our good, show us that you are worthy. God, those of us who have known you for a long time, God, there's no limit to how close we can get to you, and I just pray you help us to take that next step for us as well. What does that next step look like for us? God, you walk us hand by hand to show us even more of yourself, to show us what you're calling us to show us where we are, to love better, or to see people, or to like to devote ourselves more to you, whatever it is, God, I just trust you with that. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for being good news. We love you every day. Amen.